Hello everyone and welcome to Plane Time. I'm Ben Coleman, your host for today. Florida Aviation Network coming to you live and in the clear in our beautiful studios here in Oviedo, Florida. Gizmo Productions USA is kind enough to share their set with us. And we are here in force, all of our volunteers, and this is a volunteer workforce. And we, from the camera folks to the catering, to the switcher, to the production, even the director is a volunteer. So we're here to share and enlighten you with hopefully some good aeronautical knowledge, and our friends at the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, allow us to use this forum to qualify you for the WINGS program. So please stay tuned, and at the end of this program, not the first one, but the second one, we will have WINGS credit code for you, secret code. And I normally do something cute and try to give you the code now, but I lip sync it, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to make you please come and get the code at the end of the day. Today is a very memorable day for me because I've known this guest star for many years, and he's been an agent of the area here for many years, but he comes from farmland, and it's good to know where everybody comes from. Everybody comes from somewhere, and we're going to welcome Captain Ed Comisky. Ed.
Thanks again, Ben. Appreciate it.
It's good to see you again. Yeah. Ed, you're showing some age.
I'm not the only one.
Oh, right back at me. Oh, that hurt. Oh, that sharp pain in my
Yeah,
back.
when we first met, we both had dark hair.
We did, and lots of it. I'm thinking about growing my hair out. I really am.
Let's see how that goes.
Okay. Ed, you have been in flight instruction for a good number of years, but we were talking earlier, where did you gain your physical dexterity, your mechanical ability?
Well, I mean, it comes from growing up on a farm, driving tractors and combines, and using hands, feet, and arms to manipulate the machine. So you learn to become one with it. And I found out when I got to aviation, that's really what you do with the airplane. That you're using your hands, your feet, and your head, and everything, ears and eyes, and so it just kind of came naturally.
All the senses have to come together when you do that.
And it does.
Ed, we are here. Plane Time is primarily. We do operate in the operations mode at times, but Plane Time is an aviation maintenance emphasis. And you being, now that you've been a designated pilot examiner for the FAA for a little over 6 years or coming up?
Coming up on 6.
Okay. Has there been any instances while you're giving check rides to where maintenance has come up to be a major issue or an issue that need to be dealt with?
It does happen very regularly. That it's not as infrequent as most people would think it would be. Sometimes it's just a documentation error. Sometimes there's actually a physical problem with the airplane. The applicant's supposed to bring us an acceptable airplane for the test, and sometimes we do find shortcomings, and obviously they have to be addressed.
Well, and how we address that is a primary concern for all of us in the industry. And I do know that there's a big emphasis now with the FAA, the $300 annual. No such thing. I mean, really, it's not. Yeah. I can only think of one instance where it would cost $300, and that's if it's your airplane and you've been working on it for all of your life. But that's seldom the case when you're in a flight school and you're talking about putting 100, 150 hours a month on a machine. And every 100 hours they've got to be looked at. And a lot of maintenance related issues come up on your check rides, I'm sure. But how do we handle, Ed, and we are now in the position where we need to give back to the industry. What are we going to give back to our youth and our young folks that are wanting to get in this industry, of how important it is and how much professionalism it takes to really be an aviation mechanic?
Well, I mean, I'm impressed with the people that are out there that are doing the maintenance job. In fact, that's something I always wanted to do. I never took the time to get my airframe and power plant, but I always wanted it because growing up on the farm, you get used to working with machines, and so. Yeah, finding a good shop, a good mechanic that knows what to do, when to do it, and how to document it. That's the other thing that sometimes we find is lacking, is the documentation of the maintenance that was performed. The airplane's in great shape, but then they misdocumented something, and then it's the same as not being physically airworthy. Then it's documentation that makes it not airworthy.
Well, and there's so many different aspects of airworthy.
Yes.
And most of the aircraft we know of out there are flyworthy. I mean, they flew in, it'll fly out. I mean, that's one of the litmus paper tests. But in the old days, they used to use an acronym to determine whether or not your airplane was ready to go fly.
Mm-hmm.
What was that acronym?
Aviates.
That's one. Aero.
And Aero.
We'll go back further.
Going documents, okay.
Yeah, just for documents.
Yeah.
But you ask people, what is Aero? Well, that's what you use to determine if the aircraft is airworthy and ready to fly.
Yeah.
Really?
They have a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Sparrow.
Sparrow. Share me.
The supplements and then the placards, in addition to what you're normally familiar with Aero.
Oh,
a little more complete.
We're going to have another fun time. Not on this one. We're not going to have time. But
yeah.
But the new Aero is Araxi Visatophy.
What was that?
That's the acronym for determining your aircraft is safe to fly.
Okay.
Araxi Visatophy. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
The ACS, formerly PTS.
Correct.
And the ACS, you have an ACS for your airman applicants.
Yes.
There's an ACS for our maintenance applicants as well.
Good.
And some of the old timers say, oh, it's not like it used to be. It used to be hard to get your IA and your A&P. Now it's easy. Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily easy, but it's attainable.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to be very vigilant on our PCS.
ACS.
ACS. PTS, ACS.
Yes.
The ACS is, how has it changed from an operations standpoint?
Well, it's made the test a little bit easier to administer because it's, I think, organized better than the PTS was. It gives us more subjects to, if there's a weakness, we can dig down into that weakness and ask questions about that weakness, and then if there's a problem, when we have to do a disapproval, it allows us to pinpoint what that weakness was. Before the PTS was a little more broad,
mm-hmm.
and so it allows us to pinpoint, and it does allow us to make the oral as well as the flight more efficient because it allows us to sample certain things as far as how we execute. Whereas the PTS, we had to do every item. With the ACS, we have guidelines on, well, we got to pick one from here, and do all the skill areas. And so that makes it a little more efficient in the testing process. And it also ties it back to the written exams.
Wow. There's a lot to tie into.
Mm-hmm.
As an examiner, how much flight time do you get?
Well, technically, when I fly with an applicant, it's not flight time for me. I have to do that separate. But yeah, we're in the airplane a couple times a day usually. Okay.
And you used the term several times now about making decisions and giving you more latitude.
Mm-hmm.
How important is making a decision and your ability? I don't know how you do it because you have to really use a lot of both personal attention, professional attention, and care, but you have to know what you're striving for, and you've done it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
You've given this is 5 or 6 check rides so far.
Yeah, 500 or 600 or more.
Okay.
You know, so yeah,
Thousands.
quite a few. I mean, we're being active in examiner. There's, as everybody knows, there's not enough of us to go around, and I try to take care of people as quick as I can. But yeah, we are very busy.
I do have a compliment to share too with you, and I guess to everyone, mm-hmm. is that I've spoke to some folks that you were their examiner, And so how did you find Ed as far as being an examiner? Great, put me at ease. I wasn't nervous at all, and it was just like going to fly. And I said, well, that's the good thing. I mean, DPEs aren't there to make you nervous and make you fearful of oh my God, the check ride. And actually, it's really a verification ride, isn't it? Haven't they already proven that they meet the standards?
It's my job to validate that what the instructor has done and the school has done. They're already telling me that they're ready to be, say, a private pilot. I'm just coming in to validate it for the FAA and, stamp the approval and issue the certificate. That it's my job not to, in my opinion, to add to the stress, and it's my job to, try to get an honest evaluation of the student.
And there, on occasion, I'm sure that there are some. You don't call it a failure. It's not a failure. It's a disapproval.
It's a disapproval.
And they get opportunity to come back and fly again.
That's correct.
And from the maintenance aspect, if an aircraft isn't up to par, if you will, they also get a chance to come back when the aircraft is ready.
Yeah, and in that scenario, it's what we would call a discontinuance. If they find in the maintenance records there's something not there, or they find in the physical pre-flight of the airplane that there's a mechanical problem, they bring it up to my attention and say, hey, this is not right, and I ask them, well, what do you do? And well, we're not going to fly. They go, okay, fine. Then we're going to have to discontinue and let them fix the airplane. Sometimes we're fortunate enough that there's mechanics available and they can take a look at it and maybe rectify the problem on the spot. But the bottom line is the applicant needs to know what makes the airplane airworthy and what doesn't. And as long as they can do that and make their pilot command judgment of, okay, I'm not going to fly this airplane because of this, then that's a pat on the back, and we'll pick this up when the airplane's fixed.
Great. Ed, I know that you have through all the different check rides you give, what is the largest takeaway as far as to share with our viewing audience? If you were to give them some advice to make sure that the airplane is ready, what is the most significant weakness that you have found here recently, or basically in general? What can they be better prepared for with their aircraft?
Well, to determine that the airplane's airworthy, they need to be comfortable with, obviously, the aircraft documents that we were talking about earlier, where to find them in the airplane, because they're going to have to show them to me. But I think the area that I would say is kind of a global weak spot is maintenance records. Having them be able to open up the aircraft maintenance records and show me that they are airworthy. Airworthy is as far as annual 100-hour airworthiness directives and how that they've actually been complied with, which ones apply. And the school that has the logbook that has that all organized for them, it helps, but the applicant needs to spend the time with the logbook so that they can and the biggest thing I tell them is make sure you read. They're looking, but they never stop to read and figure out, oh, that's the ELT check. Okay, the mechanic wrote it down as 91207, but it didn't say ELT, so they went right past it.
Well, how I particularly like the ones that have the maintenance records tabbed, to where this is where you go to for this, and this.
But
however,
did they tab it or the person before them tab it? Is it the right spot?
Oh.
That happens to a lot of times. People, well, that's the 100-hour. You sure that's the most recent one?
Or you get in the logbooks and whichever pages are the dirtiest, those are the ones I want to look at because they've had the most attention detail.
Yeah.
Ed, there's a number of things that we want to cover here, and we've got a few more minutes. And safety of flight. That's kind of a very, very broad term, safety of flight. And again, I'm more just fascinated by when you determine that we're going to call it off. You normally want the applicant to call off, or if you're flying and something doesn't feel right in the air, doesn't sound right, doesn't smell right. Do you give them any cues or prompts to say, do you smell that, or I mean, it's very subjective.
Yeah,
Very
it
subjective.
is, and you know, in flight, I can continue to ask questions, and you know, if they notice something, and you know, it's pretty clear that they're, oh, what was that? I'll ask, what are you looking at? You know, and have them start telling me what they're looking at. That obviously, if it's a clear safety issue, say it was, you know, engine starter running rough, and you know, we want them to bring it to our attention, but I can also bring it to their attention. Just like the applicant can discontinue the test for mechanical reasons, I can do the same thing. You know, if an emergency occurs during the flight test, or a mechanical like that, say a multi-engine airplane, the prop doesn't come out of feather, that's an automatic emergency. The flight test is put on hold, and we deal with the problem, get back safely. And that's when I no longer am just the examiner. I can be a crew member. I generally will not be pilot in command, but I will be there to assist them to get us back safely.
And I would like to think most of your check rides, you're up there and you're at 8,000 feet, it's nice and cool. If you ever get to 8,000, usually you don't.
No, unfortunately.
But I'm sure you're just up there, just kind of arms folded, just kind of enjoying looking down at the beautiful world.
No, not really.
Okay.
I'm watching. Watching their eyeballs, watching what they're doing in the cockpit, watching the airplane itself too, because you know, the airplane can give us plenty of signals if there's something wrong. Do I sit back and look relaxed? Absolutely, because I want them to know I'm not on the controls. I'll sit back, have my arms crossed. So if I need to take over, I can. Mm-hmm. But we've always got to be vigilant on what the applicant's doing. Some of them are great. They talk through what they're doing, and you know exactly what's going on in their head. Others are quiet. Mm-hmm. And you have to start asking questions and see where their thought process is at. But you also want to make sure you stay back and not get in the way.
How about limitations, Ed? Because I know you asked them at some point in time of what's your maximum gear down speed. Mm-hmm. Usually it's on a placard, but do you apply rote, or do you want them to show you where the limitation is, or does it depend?
Depends on the scenario. That you know, some of it's done in the ground portion, where you're just quizzing them on, okay, what the speeds, then it usually rolls into, well, what does that mean? You know, what is VX and what does that mean? When would you use it? You know, they're going to show me that in flight as well if we're doing a short field takeoff. But so it really just depends on the scenario where the limitations are going to come in. You know, that we do have to make sure that they understand what the limits are. One of the biggest ones is you know, what's the crosswind limit of the airplane? Okay, what's your crosswind limit? Because we got to hear their judgment too. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're supposed to have good personal minimums, and it's a big discussion in the oral, and then we're looking for them to execute that when they're in flight. Well, they told me they weren't going to do that. Now let's see if they do that. Mm-hmm. And I have had applicants get in flight and say, hey, the winds are too strong for me, and well, they can discontinue the test in flight. Mm-hmm. if the conditions have changed. And you know, usually if they say that, I say, okay, well, you're not going to land at this airport, but in the real world, if this happened, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go to XYZ airport. Good decision. Okay, now we can discontinue, and then I'm there in case they need me to help.
How about any deficiencies? You're not involved with nighttime operations. All your check rides are
all daytime.
All daytime. Day VFR?
Day VFR, some IFR.
Okay. That would be interesting, because IFR is just another realm of...
Going into actual conditions as an examiner is my discretion. I have to give the applicant latitude to fix their own errors, but if we go IFR with an instrument rating student, they're not rated, so I have to be pilot in command in that scenario. Mm-hmm. And so we do limit the amount of times to do that. We're not going to go low IFR, but you know, if it's you know, what we call soft IFR, a lot of times we will let them file and observe them that way.
Excellent, because this is such a dynamic industry that we're in. Mm-hmm. And do you really like to fly?
Love it.
There you go.
Absolutely love it.
That's the right answer.
Going flying this afternoon on my own.
Good. Build that time. 10,000 plus hours, you still have to build time.
Well, the FAA requires us to fly pilot command, and when I'm flying with the applicant, it's not pilot command. So I got to do about 60 hours a year.
And why is that, Ed? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, because when we're sitting there, we're observing, and we keep our skills up, but not necessarily as sharp as they need to be. And there are times where it is that dire that we have to take the controls, and usually it's not in a normal realm when we're taking controls. They've already gone out of their comfort zone, so we've got to be ready to take over. So we need to be current and proficient. And there's a big difference between currency and proficiency.
Yeah, big difference. And well, I'm glad that that is a requirement because number one, it kind of forces us to get back in the cockpit.
Oh yeah.
But number two, it actually gets into another factor that I'd like to bring up is economy. Where does economy fit into this industry?
Well, my famous line about, when somebody says, what makes an airplane fly? They tell me lift. I tell them, no, money. Try to fly without it.
Yep.
And the dollar drives a lot of decisions, and that's one of those things that you got to balance it. We talk about external pressures in aeronautical decision making. Finances is always an external pressure that the schools, the instructors, the applicants have to manage.
Well, and I tell you, it's tough from a flight school standpoint. Your maintenance can make you or break you. It really can, and we don't want it to break you, but we do want enough attention to finances to go into make sure you got enough parts, make sure they're the right parts. We still are fighting suspected unapproved parts in the industry, and it's just always a constant struggle to make sure that we meet all the standards. And as we were talking before, Ed, the standards aspect, we all have different standards. Some standards are higher, some are lower. But in the FAA, they look for that median to a minimum acceptable level. Some people, we really encourage exceeding that minimum, but we want to know where that standard is, where the bottom line is. Do you think that any of the flight schools would like to have twice the amount of money, twice the amount of mechanics and technicians, and just double everything?
Yeah, I mean, I when I talk to the flight school owners, they're battling to find mechanics, good mechanics. There's mechanics and they're good mechanics. We both know, and they need to find those people, and then the finances that parts prices are going up, and so they're thinking twice about fixing this or that. And we all know that there are things that can be deferred and there are things that can't be deferred. So as a formal flight school owner, it was always a challenge. We took a hard line on it and had some good airplanes, and knock wood, I've flown a lot of good equipment because of that. And it was because for years, there were places that didn't take good care, and I was still working for them, and they always wanted it to be better. And that's one of those things is maintenance is expensive, safety is worth it.
It's priceless.
Yes.
Really, there is no price on, and it just breaks my heart when I hear about an airplane loss of power, and I had to put it down. Because just because you don't have a power plant, ask our friend Diego Alfonso, just because you don't have power doesn't mean that you're going to die.
That's right.
You now have a glider. But again, it gets into the decisions of doing a restart in air. You have a mechanical and something starts to shut down on you. Have you had any of those experiences?
Well, fortunately, we're catching them before we go fly. I have had some scenarios where the gear inadvertently started to extend, and okay, let's get them down. Flight test is on hold. Let's get them down, take the airplane back, let them figure it out once they get it on the jacks. Rough running engine, prop not coming out of feather. Those are type of things. And some of those are more, like the prop not coming out of feather was the applicant, just followed the procedure, but they didn't get enough airspeed before they pulled it out of feather. And he couldn't get it restarted. I'm like, okay, then we'll just bring it back and we'll let them look at it and figure it out.
We'll practice a single engine landing.
Exactly.
And that usually works out well.
Yes.
Ed, as far as the, and again, I'm hammering you on maintenance.
Because you're a mechanic.
I'm a mechanic. I'm a mechanic first, then I learned how to fly. But maintenance is, do you like to fix things?
Oh, yeah.
How did you learn to fix things?
Well, I mean, I grew up on a farm. My dad said, here's a lawnmower engine, rebuild it and get it running. I did. And I mean, so we worked on all the stuff on the farm. And then when I went off to college, I started learning. I got my private in high school, in college was working on my instrument rating, but I got a line job pumping gas at an airport. And so every break I had, and especially in the winter, I would go out to the maintenance shop and just ask questions and sit there, and that's where I really learned a lot about the mechanical side of the aircraft.
Ed, I'm so disappointed. You got your private license when?
High school.
High school.
17.
I wish that if that hadn't happened, we'd have you as a mechanic right now.
Maybe.
Darn it. See?
If I win the lottery, I'm going to go get my A&P.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. That brings us up to kind of a wind down for our first segment here. But the ultimate airman, are there any pilots that would like to be mechanics? I hope yes.
Not as many as you would think.
Are there any mechanics that would like to be pilots?
Quite a few.
It would concern me of someone that wanted to work on an aircraft, but no, I'm not going to go fly it. No, not me.
No.
Or pilots that, I don't want to know what goes on behind the panel. No, that's for the mechanics. That's the mechanics world.
Yes, there are unfortunately people like that out there. That they want the reward, they want the high-end airline job, and yeah, everything is laid out for them there. But they still need to understand how this thing works, because their life and everybody's life behind them depends on it.
And it's not only in GA, more so in the big airlines as well. But I'm going to throw the gauntlet down. That is our task, is to get the pilots to want to be mechanics, and to get the mechanics to want to be pilots.
It's a big goal, but I like it.
And there's no other reason other than finances and time and money.
Yep.
Is where we're looking at there. But if you have the dedication and the drive, there will be the time and the money. It's just a matter of how soon it'll happen. Buy those lotto tickets. But we do want to, we're going to wind this one up, Ed, and we're going to come back for the second segment. And we've talked about some really good, juicy stuff here, but we're going to have some more juicy stuff when we come back, and some takeaways, some things that you will want to remember and write it down. So we will see you the next segment here at the Plane Time. I'm Ben Coleman, your host, and we're going to wind it down, and we will see you in a few minutes.